So that's a Jewish prayer that I found online. And I will do the land acknowledgement before I turn it over to our speaker tonight, to David, and then to Morgan. As we gather, we acknowledge that the area we know as the Diocese of Toronto is also the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat. This land is also the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care peacefully for the resources around the Great Lakes. We give thanks for the stewardship of this land by Indigenous people and the continuing presence here of First Nations, Métis, Inuit from across Turtle Island. And we acknowledge the displacement of First Nations people to reserves by a series of treaties, the harm caused by colonialism, and the role our church has played in it. And this is the agenda for tonight. We're at opening prayer, land acknowledgement, and then we'll have introductions, and then Morgan will lead the discussion, and we'll finish up with some questions and answers, and we hope to finish up by 8:15. So I will stop sharing and pass it over to David, one of my committee members, David Parody.
Well, greetings, folks, and welcome from snowy Aurelia. It's great to be in a nice, warm basement here with my fireplace going, and what a wonderful night, cozy night to have a shop talk session. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce Morgan, who will be leading the discussion tonight. And And Morgan is an AV tech specialist at the Church of the Redeemer in TO. And for those of you who don't know Church of the Redeemer, it's a very large urban church, very, very active with a very robust presence online, both with streaming of services, etc., and social media. So they're a leader in this kind of activity. So he oversees the online activities at Church of the Redeemer. It's also involved with the diocese, I believe, as on special projects at the cathedral. And last year, during the season of spiritual renewal, he was helping a lot with the streaming of services and so forth from the various areas. I had the pleasure of meeting Morgan last June when he gave a presentation and brought us back to ground zero in our online activities. And he really kind of grounded us and reminded us of a lot of the basics. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Morgan and looking forward to a very, very insightful talk. Morgan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, David. That was wonderful. If I could have paid you to say nothing, I would have, but that was awesome. I'm really glad you recognized all those good things about Redeemer, and you actually allowed me to skip some of the introduction of my talk, so I appreciate that. A note, I will touch on technical systems for production, but it will not be with the intention of defining standards, so you don't have to worry about keeping notes on hardware. So this is not going to be a highly technical talk in that sense. So let's just get into it. Wrong slide. Sorry, let me fix that. Here we go. Just before the pandemic, Barna Research surveyed over 400 American pastors on their biggest concerns. Keeping up with digital and technological trends came in last, 22nd out of 20, out of 22. Only 7% of pastors flagged it. Challenges to the traditional church model, like online churches, came in 21st. Digital was the last thing on anyone's mind. I've highlighted the relevant data at the bottom of the image. Then, in March 2020, every church was handed a live stream problem on a Friday afternoon. You might remember it. Many of us are now 5 years into experiments with being online in new ways. There was a big push to live stream on multiple platforms or straight to Zoom. We've also seen podcasts like talk shows, lobby greetings, greeters and chats, shop talks like these offered by the diocese. Midday prayers, meditations, and other forms emerged since then. Why did we do it? Borrowing a term from another world, let's call what happened an innovation trigger so it fits within my next slide. The graphical representation of a hype cycle applied to the investment promises of AI almost looks like a mirror of our experiences and conversations around live streaming and Zoom. I'm
Excuse
using
me,
it as a,
Morgan.
yes,
Hello, this is Bob. I've got
yes.
only a very small picture, not a full screen.
Oh, I think you're also getting it in reverse. So hold on, give me a moment.
It's
No,
just it's not clear. It is full, but
It's
it's
full.
not clear. Yeah.
No,
And if you're watching at home and it seems very small,
Oh,
you may
so
have to go to the top and go to view
Go to
and
view.
select speaker.
yes,
to-
if I could be spotlighted, that should help too.
okay.
You are.
So I think I know what you mean by the lack of clarity, but that's intentional. It's just the way
Oh, okay.
it's
Okay.
the image I
fine.
grabbed.
Thank you.
It's okay. You let me know with the next slide if it's still a problem. So yeah, I'm using it as an analogy, not a data claim. The person I'm borrowing it from used it to explain crypto and AI adoption patterns. The shape is what's important here, highlighted at the bottom. A sudden trigger, a peak of inflated expectations, a trough of disillusionment, an inevitable slope of enlightenment when we've gained enough distance and can look back, a plateau of productivity. We'll skip to the peak of inflated expectations for obvious reasons. Roughly mapping our experiences onto that hype cycle, this is what I've come up with. It's not definitive. We could easily expand on each page as if we were in a workshop filling out a whiteboard, but I'm short on hands and computer monitors. Peak of inflated expectations, partly out of necessity. Increase attendance back to pre-COVID numbers and back to golden periods, a kind of church 3.0. In other words, to reverse a decline. Everyone else is doing it, so we don't want to be left behind. We're already behind and must catch up. Emergency connection to sustain community. Using technology to fix a problem it did not cause. The Anglican Church of Canada reported losing 6% of average attendance per year since 2017. StatCan had monthly group religious participation 23% already in 2019. So Rebecca and everyone, can you read that okay? Is that better now?
Yeah. It is for me.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah?
you.
Okay, great. Next slide. Trough of disillusionment. Inadequate tech and tech debt. Volunteer or staff burnout from increased complexity. Viewership doesn't necessarily translate into deep engagement. Lack of resources to maintain tech growth. Belief that giving or volunteerism is low, which are both false in our experience, by the way. Reluctance. Are we enabling people to stay at home? If we shut it down, people will be forced to come back in person. And then moving on to the slope of enlightenment. That's where we are and what my presentation is about. Remote discovery. Find communities you align with far away. YouTube as perpetually open doors, a portal into worship at any time for whatever reason. Other benefits that couldn't have been planned for. Remote participation so events can go forward during times of inclement weather. Neurodivergent friendly platforms. Accessibility platforms, varying abilities do not need to be disclosed or extreme to be valid. We can turn off our cameras and sit and experience worship without distractions. And a new era of stewardship is forming.
I think you may be on the next slide.
Oh, no, I'm supposed to be on slope of enlightenment.
Oh, okay.
No, he's fine.
Thanks, Deb. These are gifts we didn't ask for but needed. While increasing engagement and attendance, we built pastoral accessibility tools along the way. I fit somewhere in the camp that prefers turning off their cameras and not being noticed, yet here I am. Please don't notice me. I want to spend some time acknowledging items in the trough of disillusionment, not to be discouraging, but because I have learned they aren't always well understood. I think now is a good time to look back and around us. A live stream is not a flat recording of a service. It is a service with an additional layer of production happening simultaneously. Cameras, ideally more than one, with someone operating them or managing presets. Audio for the room, separate audio for the live stream, other visual elements like slides, video playback, perhaps remote component. What used to be enough, miking primary speakers and singers, no longer cuts it. More important than cameras, how we mix the service is integral to preserving in-person qualities. Whether we are aware of it or not, there's a subconscious expectation that a service should sound the way it looks, happening in a church, not a box. That means appropriate mics for choirs, acoustic instruments, singers in the room, elements not historically amplified during a service. that type of mixing sometimes requires a second sound engineer or more, as we will likely get into. Suddenly, you are running a small or large broadcast production. This is our 3-operator station for Season Spiritual Renewal in Aurelia, which Jennifer will remember being a part of. And then I have Trinity Streetsville in Mississauga, a high-level production environment with a wonderfully skilled team. Sadly, I can't show examples of St. Paul's Bloor and other places that I visited because I accidentally deleted those photos. Future Morgan here, introducing content that was not a part of my original presentation. Let's unpack some of the tech required for different scales of production. It helps to see them on a spectrum. Live streaming tech requirements include multiple cameras, 2 different audio mixes for in-person broadcast, hardware and software for switching, receiving audio and encoding to stream, coordination with leadership and scripting in the order of service, optional on-screen display of the order of service in person, online, production screens, communication tools for broadcast team, coverage of acoustic, electronic audio sources and room sound, mic'd leadership, balanced broadcast levels. Behind all that hardware and software exists a dedicated team of competent volunteers or professionals that can reliably produce results week after week as well as maintain equipment. Hybrid worship can be a live stream with a Zoom component that may include remote readers, etc. Sometimes broadcast to Zoom rather than YouTube. The issue is broadcast to Zoom diminishes audio quality because their compression favors spoken voice over dynamic music. Low latency is a benefit compared to YouTube, allowing near real-time participation on a good connection. I view hybrid as a live stream backup for when those on a roto can't be present, rather than a primary broadcast method, but that's just me. At Redeemer, we use hybrid elements when we want everyone to be together for something like Ash Wednesday, which just passed. The rest of the time, we tailor offerings to the platforms we are using. This does not affect our feeling of being one community. Next slide. So what am I referring to when I speak about Zoom Church? First, what you need: a computer or a phone, a microphone, which is optional, and a camera, which is also optional. Most people have these things. Our format looks like this, which you'll see on the left-hand side. All of us in Zoom boxes, moderators welcoming us and explaining what to expect, moderator sharing the bulletin and managing mutes and spotlighting, a bell video or other seasonal video content to start services, readers and prayer writers, presider and homilist zooming in, not broadcast from the sanctuary, simplified liturgical elements without excluding communion, wording throughout that relates to the online experience, creative efforts to introduce experiences such as ashes or baptism, which we are always in the process of developing and redeveloping, coffee hour after a brief break without breakout rooms. This is universally despised. Breakout rooms, that is. Pre-recorded music. Zoom does not compress screen-shared video the same way it does live audio, and the music is a really important part of our services. This is the basic format of our Zoom Church at Redeemer. Leadership spends as much time discussing online offerings as we do in-person services. We continuously integrate community suggestions to improve online experiences. Now, what it is not an in-person worship service broadcast to Zoom. That would be hybrid. I'm not here to rank these. Each one is the right tool in the right context. What I want to spend time on is what Zoom specifically makes possible for community, pastoral care, and accessibility, precisely because it asks so little to get started. Now back to the original presentation. And I also don't have photos of my setup at Redeemer, but I did make a meme to summarize my preferred operating approach. I'm an A for effort kind of presenter. Can you believe they pay me to operate equipment? I did not have time to produce a mind map of all the network tech that might be typical of a production environment, so I'm leaning on Trinity Streetsville for a moment. I looked and could not find a quote from the Bible stating the eye or head has no need of other body parts, so that must mean interdependence of parts is a rule, not an exception. These components are like the hands and feet of technology. Many combinations are possible, and we are part of that as staff or volunteers. If someone could find a quote that supports this notion, let me know in chat. Hold on. So back to me for a moment. Reviewing online offerings is not hard to find examples of streams using only one camera or a single dynamic mic on an entire choir, or witnessing an inaudible gospel read from the center of a congregation. I'm not here to give a blueprint for everyone to follow, more a compass. What followed, let me just check the chat to make sure everything's okay. What followed for many smaller and mid-sized churches was a period of doing too much with too little. Volunteers absorbed technical roles on top of existing roles. Clergy took on responsibility that should have been shared. We could go on. At the same time, thought pieces emerged on forums, YouTube, and prominent places like the New York Times, announcing it was time to pull the plug to get butts back in seats. And I still hear people saying it. In 2022, Tish Harrison Warren, an Anglican priest, wrote, "Now I think it's time to drop the virtual option." Oh, I should go on. Let me make sure. Oh, no. I didn't mean to go ahead. Sorry about that. Bodies, with all their risk and mortality, are not obstacles to transcend through digitization. We are not in 2020 anymore. We still hear echoes of that today, as if the accessible ramps we have created online are remnants of the pandemic. Oh, yeah, I think I did actually want to be in here. I apologize. I messed that up. Here's a thread from 1 month ago on a subreddit focused on church tech. I bring your attention to one comment in particular. Maybe you've heard this before. This is what it's in response to is really kind of throwaway. It's the content of what they said that's important. What one person said in response: church leadership was very clear that they only want to put so much investment into the live stream as they really want to emphasize the importance of being in person to the congregation. They don't want to buy a second camera, not from a budgetary standpoint, but a philosophical standpoint. Here's another asking, why do some churches still use Zoom for live streaming? I'm sure people have heard this oftentimes. In response, some people said, they don't know any better. We do it because I haven't had my way yet. Old habits. When the pandemic hit, everyone was scrambling to get their service online. Zoom happened to be the platform that most people were familiar with, and in some organizations it just stuck as a default way of serving homebound people. In the midst of these opinions and derogatory terms for those who choose or have to be online, and the sounds of those voices unless amplified by others, and the coolness of live streaming, we are forgetting the usefulness of a good tool. I'm just going to check one more time to make sure that we're good. Yes, breathe. Thank you, Deb. I'm sorry, I'm not great with pacing. I don't often give presentations, so I might be rushing a little bit. I will try to slow down. I want to make a brief sidebar on cool versus tool. Here's a cool output from ChatGPT in 2022. The prompt reads, write a biblical verse in the style of the King James Bible, explaining how to remove a peanut butter sandwich from a VCR. The output, and it came to pass that a man was troubled by a peanut butter sandwich, for it had been placed within his VCR, and he knew not how to remove it. And he cried out to the Lord, saying, O Lord, how can I remove this sandwich from my VCR, for it is stuck fast and will not budge, etc. And the Lord said, verily I say unto thee, seek not, I think I might have misgrabbed some of this text. Anyway, you get the point. What I'm trying to say here is that this is more cool than tool. This is not an argument against live streaming, which is extremely cool and is also an important tool for churches. Each is a different aspect of the same thing. None is better or worse. What I will say is where resources may not exist for full productions, Zoom is an extremely effective tool. The pandemic demanded we look for tools without preparation time. Churches that were struggling were given conditions overnight that even well-resourced churches take years to build. Capacity can't follow that fast. That's circumstance, not failure. The question was never whether to be online. The question is when, why, and how, with honest capacity as a prerequisite. For many of us, we are still working through those answers, and that's fine. Because I think we know more now than we did 5 years ago. We are less caught up in the hype and the trough of disillusionment. We're no longer running to catch up. We can walk together while building solutions meaningful to our contexts. Which brings us back to the New York Times circa 2022 once again. Readers wrote in response to Tish's article a week earlier, People unable to come to church for whatever reason, people who had tried to access the pastoral care Warren described, the home visits, the lay Eucharistic ministers, and found those pathways weren't in practice, whatever the ideal looked like in theory. And I'm just going to check that I managed to take a quote correctly. I'm just going to read. One reader with lymphoma wrote, "The chronically ill are an afterthought, if thought of at all. Our church's leadership doesn't care enough about the homebound to have anyone come visit us in person. If anyone needs help, they have to beg for it." To her credit, Warren walked it back. I'm going to check once again. I might have made some mistakes here. Let's find out. I agree that offering live streaming services to those with unique accessibility needs could play a helpful role. I'm sorry not to have included this caveat in my original piece. A strong voice arguing for dropping online service conceded the argument when confronted with lived experience. What of those with lived experience that don't have an audience? They're easy to ignore when not in the room. There's a British writer named Tanya Marlowe who responded in a Twitter thread, this is from the same article by the way, with a theological answer to the embodiment argument that you must be in church. I am embodied. I am always embodied because I have a body, albeit a disabled one. When I'm in bed watching a service, I am worshiping with my body. Disabled people are a massively underreached people group and have often experienced abuse and rejection by churches. We are in the middle, and this is something I brought attention to during our attention to during the thing that David was talking about. We are in the middle of the World Health Organization's Decade of Healthy Aging, a global initiative running 2021 to 2030. Sorry, did someone say something?
No.
Okay. Look out at your parish on Sunday and tell me we are not in the middle of this. 1 in 4 older people are socially isolated. 1 in 10 experience loneliness. Social isolation is linked to a 29% increased risk of mortality. These are not quality of life concerns, they're public health numbers with measurable consequences. The WHO names information and communication technologies directly as tools for addressing social isolation in older adults. They also define assistive technology as including digital solutions that allow people to participate in activities they otherwise could not. In the next 5 years, what will our congregations look like? Will everyone who is able to be there today still be able to attend? What will their options be? It's not hard to see Zoom as accessibility and pastoral technology for congregations in this context. In my opinion, we should hold others up as we grow, not leave them behind. They have important stories to tell and experiences left to be had. The people who most need online options are rarely in the room when decisions get made. We must bring them into the room. At this time, I hoped to point to data from our own working group, but I couldn't find it. And when I was given some options, it turned out they weren't there either. So I apologize, but you can imagine, I'll just ask you to imagine, it was a graph showing a decline in church attendance before the pandemic, and then a steady increase post-pandemic. And the point I wish to make with this was that some of that resurgence in numbers, and this is based on a conversation with Ann Cope, who may or may not be in the room, it's a reformation with members who may have otherwise simply stopped being able to attend pre-pandemic and during. Lacking that graphical representation, I want to introduce a video produced from 2 fruitful Zoom coffee hour discussions after our 9 a.m. services. This was a kind of report to vestry, but also something we made with the intention of sharing here. You will hear a variety of reasons people join us via Zoom and YouTube. There are as many reasons as boxes in the room. All are valid, including those that go unspoken. So I'm just going to see if I can find it.
I'd just like to say I started coming during COVID, as I think many of us did, but also during COVID, my mobility diminished dramatically. And so to have a Zoom service that continues is wonderful. But the wonderful thing about this service is that we are in our boxes with our names, so we get to know each other. So we're all close to each other. And I think that really that's Zoom.
And so by coming here, not only do I get to be with my Redeemer community, which is so important to me as it is and always will be my home parish, but I get to worship for the part of the service I don't get to worship here at St. Martin's. I kind of pieced together an entire Eucharist service by having the liturgy of the word here at Redeemer and then the liturgy of the table at St. Martin's with the kiddos.
Well, I started coming during COVID, obviously, for a Zoom service, but I've continued because I am, going to see my uncle 5 or 6 days a week, and because he is bedbound, his health is just plain fragile, and he doesn't want to go to hospital. I don't want him to have to go to hospital. And so it just kind of, makes my world smaller. But it also is just sort of what I need to be doing right now.
Being able to zoom in to Redeemer has just meant being able to be nourished every week. I don't know any other way to sort of put it. When Liska asked in the sermon, what are you looking for? I thought, I often don't know what I'm looking for on a Sunday morning when I click into this this service, but I know I'm going to be fed. I'm going to be fed by great music and have a chance to sing, and I'm going to hear really thoughtful prayers and sermons, and be part of this community.
I also started coming to the 9 o'clock because of mobility issues. And sometimes I also watch the YouTubes, and what I find is there's neither better nor worse. It's different aspects of the service.
And for a while I felt really guilty about it, like it wasn't real church, or like it would be better if I went in person. And so I kind of had to work through that a bit. Like, this is actually church, and it's not second best, and it's not lazy. But right now it's better to balance my life as to go on Zoom rather than in person most weeks.
It is different, and I think we're only beginning to learn how that's good for everybody.
This has enabled, I think, real conversation, not just about our faith, but about the things that are happening in our lives. And as Sylvia says, the things that are happening around us that have everything from annoyance to frustration to fear, everything like that. And yet we're able to share them.
And I think of it as an incredible gift, living 2 hours away, to be able to be nourished once more by this community. And I think we have a number of people like that, right? Jonathan's in Boston, and Deb's in Montreal, and there's just some people for whom this is the touchstone. And how wonderful is it that can have been created?
And I've actually found it for the last few times that I've attended, it's actually one of the most vibrant online communities that I've been involved with. And one thing that I've really noticed is how everybody is mobilized, participates in the service, and the way that everything is organized so well, even down to the bulletins, the music, and the involvement of so many people is just incredibly amazing. And and we're hoping also that the Anglican Church in some way, shape, or form will continue to pursue use online platforms as a way to reach people in many different corners of the world. Because wherever there's always a belief that every space under heaven is a place to meet Christ. And I truly believe that this online community is a very good example of that.
I see people a lot in the church, but when you know about their personal life, gives you a belonging to them, a responsibility. You're not just hearing, you're feeling, and we're listening to a feeling and not just words.
In terms of the Zoom service, coffee time and community, I have often said this is in this time of uncertainty and oftentimes darkness, my community, my Zoom friends here are my light, are my re-energizing people and my support that I need to have to go another week because I know there's goodness in the world. It reminds me of the goodness in the world, and the fellowship that I share with you all is something that I need to fill me as a person, my heart and my soul, to keep me going every week. And I feel like I am a better person that is surviving at times and just like feeling that I can manage and that I am reminded that there are good people still in the world. So you guys mean so much to me. I honestly, I thank all of you, and I've said that before, and I continue to say that.
It is equal church, isn't it? It's as I said earlier, it's different but still equally amazing.
Thank you for that. I'm not quite done, but I do want to give a pause because I really think that a lot was said there, and I've been rushing a little bit, so I'm just going to pause for a moment and let that settle and maybe have a look around and see who's here. As Sarah said, it is equal church. And to quote Pauline, it is different, and I think we're only beginning to learn how that is good for everybody. Ask your online community what they need and what feeds them directly. They will tell you where your offering is thin, where it feels like an afterthought, and what they actually need, and they will probably surprise you. During vestry yesterday, I'm proud to say, the Community Redeemer carried a vision statement that recognized the importance of online ministry. Here are a couple excerpts. We seek to open our doors and hearts, embracing all who seek a sacred space. We offer worship in many forms, touching the hearts of those yearning for spiritual connection in person or online. We seek to reach out in person and virtually to the world around us. We dare to love in word and action so that others see something of God in their midst. We are, sorry, that's the next slide. Don't look. We're not trying to get everyone back into the building. We're finding other ways of being one body. It's not just how many people are in the pews on a Sunday. It's about whether the community is connected, sustained, and present to each other across whatever distance or circumstance exists between them and the door. So, putting on my Captain Obvious pants for a moment, a main takeaway I want everyone to walk away with at minimum is that Zoom is an important online engagement platform that can help deepen relationships within the community. But also, it is a pastoral and accessibility tool that might be more core to our futures than we like to think. The tools we use online should be carefully chosen. We can measure the realness of them by how those experiences cycle back into our lives. as demonstrated throughout that video. Zoom worship plugs back into real life. People return weekly, form lasting bonds, report being sustained through grief and illness. This is not about numbers as a marker for success. It is not a concert, but if it were, we can reasonably guarantee that more will soon be attending, considering where we are in this decade of healthy aging. We are building something that needs to exist, and we should build it with intention. So, if we were to say what online church is, are we comfortable giving it a title? What is Zoom church? Was it just a necessity during the pandemic? Would you say it's time to pull the plug? You don't need a blueprint for how to be online. You need a compass. What does your compass tell you? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Morgan. Well, I am opening it up for questions, but while I wait to see hands, I'd love to know, what is your compass, Morgan?
It's very much defined by the conversations that I have with people around Church of the Redeemer. I wouldn't say it's mine. I feel like all I do is respond to what other people say. And yeah, I try to not get in the way of that. There was a time where I was probably amongst those who wondered why we were doing Zoom church, because it was really easy to have to suggest that we need to pull the plug on something like that, because we were grappling with the rationale during a declining period of wondering how to get people back in the pews. But the community itself refused that and stepped up and increased engagement in order to keep that alive. And I think since then has demonstrated what a important part of Redeemer's ministry, and I guess all of our lives, Zoom is. So yeah, that's our compass is the community ultimately. My compass is the community. I'm
Your compass
mixed
is
up in that. I'm somewhere in there.
That's okay. That's okay. And please, other people, if you just raise your hand, if everybody knows where the reactions are in the bottom, or just say, "You're here," unmute yourself and say, "You're here," and you have a question. Be happy to see you. I am going to remove the spotlight just so I can see everybody. That's okay. Hello, everyone. We should all
I was
wave to
also
each
curious
other.
whether or not anybody from Redeemer's community had anything to say about that, since it's sort of based on their experiences, and if any of that.
Yes, I see
Go
people
on,
from the
Deb.
video. Hello, Heather Bennett.
Yeah. Wearing slightly different clothing, so you know we didn't film it all today.
That's good. Well, that would have been okay too. Yes, Deb.
Hi, everybody. I'm part of the Zoom community at the Redeemer, but unfortunately, because of personal circumstances, I wasn't able to participate in the video, which I feel badly about, but I'm in Montreal. What happens when the community that draws you isn't just around the corner or down the street? And I spent a long time looking for my next church, and I couldn't find it around the corner or down the street, but I did find it at the Redeemer. And so, because of the work that Morgan and the team there does, that has made that community accessible to me. So I'm a regular attendee. It's very rare that I miss, because it's so important. And the coffee hours are incredible because we get to talk to the preacher. So, you get to talk to them about their sermon, and it's very intimate in a way that live church, I'm sorry to say, just never is. The other thing is that a very dear friend of mine was living in Istanbul and really yearning for a community to visit. And he's moved to Toronto now, and he's not part of the community right now because he can't get there and his time requirements have changed. But for months he was a regular attendee, and it enriched him when he needed it. And someone else who's now joined the actual physical community was in Seattle and found out about us online and participated in many services before she moved and got a lot of support from our community in her move. So in their move. So I can't say enough about how important it is to consider this as an option for your communities. And Morgan, thank you for expressing it so well. By the way, I followed the YouTube service originally and was too shy to join the actual the Zoom community because it just seemed like a hurdle too far. But that opened up as an opportunity, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Terrific. Thank you, Deb. Christina, don't forget to unmute.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak. So I too am part of the Church of the Redeemer, and and we're big fans of Morgan and what he has provided for us and our Zoom. We actually call it a community because it really is. And I know Deb talked about someone who came from Seattle, found us online, and then when they decided to move to Toronto, and which they did, they found something online from the diocese website, found that Redeemer might be a good fit, and then joined us on Zoom. And like the rest is history. And my husband and I actually went out to pick them and their partner when they arrived. And our minister, Steve Mackison, always said, like, wow, that's amazing. And it's like, we're like, no, but because we felt this closeness to this person. And I think when you have a group and a community, you form bonds and friendship, even though it's online and it feels strange, but it really was something that my husband and I wanted to do because we wanted to be there and help and support this person making a huge transition and decision in their life. What I want to talk more about, though, because I know Deb already talked about the Seattle person, but is I think about what Morgan said earlier about not leaving someone behind. And I think that has become so important as our population is aging and mobility. And you heard that in the video as well. And not just Carolyn, the one who opened the video that you saw earlier about how mobility, and you heard that a little bit through for a few other people. I think of a couple of other people who are Abigail and Catherine, who are absolute regulars on our Zoom service. And especially one of them has tremendous mobility issues, lives in the city, but cannot come to the church in person. And they are active members. Catherine and I do the rota, we do the bulletins, and Abigail is a reader. And I think, and they have been with Redeemer for decades. I mean, like they know the history, that they're like our archivists. They know the story of Redeemer when it went through a lot of changes. And I think that how poor would we be as a community if we didn't have them in our midst? And I so am appreciative and grateful that they can continue to be part of our community, be active members of our community through Zoom. And I think that's a wonderful thing, and not to leave someone behind because they just physically cannot do so. And I think that is a terrible shame. They have so much compassion, wealth of information to share with the church in online and in person. And I would hate to lose that. And I think the fact that the Zoom platform allows them to continue to be active members, I think is a fantastic thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. Tim, just before I come to you, it said that one other person raised their hand. Who else was that?
I think it was Christina. She still had her hand raised.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Thanks. No, I thought there was somebody else. But anyway, Tim, just before I ask you, I would like to know, this is the most people that we have ever had register for a session. And I know what I want to ask about, but I'm really curious. What did you really want? What are the questions that you really wanted to address coming to a shop talk that is about making online meaningful for everyone in terms of seeing, hearing, and most importantly, the experiencing of a faith-filled um, event, session, meeting, worship? What questions did you come with? And if you want, you can type them in the chat if you're better with that, or we'll come around. And I'll let Tim ask his question while you're thinking about that.
Morgan, good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Ralph. I'm from All Saints in Whitby, and just really, really excited to hear from the folks at Redeemer and Morgan, all that you've lent to us. And am suffering from the end of a cold, so apologies for the cough. I was really intrigued by, and one of the questions I had coming into tonight was, what are the reasons and the experiences of those on the other side of the screen in their homes? I was so a sort of an epiphany for me tonight has been the woman who spoke about coming to terms with coming to the service as she is in a busy Sunday morning and being okay with maybe just having it on whilst a crazy morning continues. I think we need to give people permission and freedom to approach a service in the way that works for them. And I think we are right to carve out a space digitally for those who cannot get to services because of mobility issues and the alike. But I think also we need to publicize that it is a-okay that if you are a busy dad or mom or person in your home on a Sunday morning, or you're on the way to soccer, or you've just got an earbud in, that's okay to be part of the community and listening and worshiping and stopping and praying when the Spirit moves you. And maybe we need to talk more about that so that people can access it. We have a fairly stalwart group of 30, 25 regulars who attend our digital services every Sunday. But I think if we said to people, it's okay to be on the deck of the cottage, and we understand it doesn't look like church, but you're here with us because this is important to you, and your being with us is important to us. So I just think we need to perhaps say that out loud more from the front, from our clergy, so that we understand that we don't all have to be sitting in a wooden chair uncomfortably for an hour in the building to experience God. That's not necessarily the way it works. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Thanks so much, Morgan. Lots to think and
Perfect.
chew on tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And we're going to have Suzanne and then Henry and then Doug. And I just wanted to break in if I can, because I guess I can, that we keep talking about, elderly and those that don't have necessarily have the accessibility, or perhaps, have found their community, their ministry from a different city. But we also have a great deal of activities that happen on Sunday. I personally have left the Anglican Church twice and come back because I wanted to be in worship at different times of the week and different times of the day. If you have children in hockey, in swimming, in whatever, church isn't a part of your life. And the Anglicans seem to be stuck to Sunday morning. And who are we not inviting in because of that? So Suzanne, and then Henry, and then Doug. Hey, Suzanne, and who is this?
This is Suzanne and Molly,
Hi,
who
Molly.
always comes at a time when she's saying it's about time to be fed. I'm Sarah's mom from Redeemer, by the way, and so have known about, you can tell, can't you? So I've known about the value of this Zoom service to Sarah. It's really meant that she can once again worship. And it means so much, and she's not old. She has an old mother. But I'm interested in, so I'm sold on the idea. I'm interested in pushing Redeemer and the diocese into trying to figure out how this can be done in other churches. And I'm not convinced that in a more rural setting it can be done by single churches. I'd love to know what the budget is in terms of equipment and tools, but the budget in terms of the skills you have to recruit for and the number of clergy that you involve. Most of us, if we're lucky, have half a one or one. That person can't do 3 services in a Sunday, and we keep them alive. So that kind of extended budget. And then on the other side, I spend time with people in retirement homes, many of whom are beginning a loss of cognition, but also with that, the incapacity to come to the church they love. How can we learn to backfill skills in technology or provide volunteers to be with them? I just don't know how to face that end of it as well. So my encouragement is please keep going, but get it written. Get us some basic guidelines as starters. What did you start with that you have had to move away from? How can you help people get accustomed to this new way, this that would be available to them? So those are my thunks, but I've had longer to think. This is the 3rd time I've seen that video, and it's wonderful.
Okay. Can I take a crack at some of that, Rebecca?
Can I just answer something?
Sure.
I got to meet a group of women at St. George on Yonge who have Alzheimer's and different things like that. It's a special group that meets on Zoom, and they look at recordings from the church with their caregivers and a lay facilitator. So they've kept the connections through the church, through old friends. So I'll try and hook you up with that person. Her name's Elizabeth Beecham, Suzanne Lawson. But I take it that you're looking for guidelines and checklists as well, not just personal experience.
Yep. Thank you.
Which our group is determined to do, and we gather these questions and these and also these experiences that people have at each of these shop talks. So I'm going to go to Henry, and then I'm going to go to Doug. And I just want to remind
before we do that, can I just take a crack at some of that?
Go ahead.
Just because I think it also sort of addresses Michael in the chat somewhat as well. Although I don't know I can answer that just yet exactly. But Suzanne, to some of your questions, I think I didn't do a good job of explaining the format of our Zoom church on Sunday. And so maybe others don't understand either. But it's a little different from what Tim does at All Saints in that it's not a projection of an in-person service. It's actually basically a second service that we conduct online. So the preachers, everyone is seated in front of their computers, and then I basically screen share pre-recorded music from our music team into the chat, or not in the chat, sorry, into the call. And I was trying to kind of sell some of this as this type of format is a really actually affordable technical solution to the problem of the burden of the complexity that a lot of churches struggle to maintain and resource, because that's why I was mentioning things like volunteer or staff burnout, because live streaming, the reality is it is expensive. And that's kind of why I was trying to show some examples from other churches of in Trinity Streetsville, for example, where they have a really large setup. And anyway, the point is that Zoom is actually a very affordable option because it does require very little technology, especially if you're not streaming in the service, but you're actually sort of sitting in front and you're sort of conducting it just as we are right now with very few technical barriers versus the other method. But I wouldn't say it's to erase the other method. It's more that these are different facets of the same thing, and they're all valid for different purposes. But I really think that it's an affordable alternative that maybe many could afford that can't afford to pursue the route of full productions. And then maybe we can come back around and answer Michael after Henry and everyone else talks.
I know, Rebecca, you asked what people's questions were, and one of the things I'm going to say is, other than Morgan, I noticed 6 people from Redeemer on this call, and I'm not sure that we're all coming with questions. I think we're coming with advocacy, because it is like it is, as people have said, a wonderful community. It's a wonderful worship service, and we are supportive of each other. And I know there are times when my wife and I are able to attend in person. There are more times when it's easier for us to attend by Zoom. I think we have attended by Zoom while visiting family in New Jersey. I think we've attended by Zoom while sitting on a cruise ship in Europe. We have attended Zoom when the weather is terrible, and we've attended Zoom when that is just part of our Sunday morning. It is, and I think part of it is because the Zoom community, because as Carolyn said in the video, we see each other's names. We know each other better. It's like having a name tag Sunday every Sunday, and it's a community of a few dozen people, and communities of a few dozen people can be really tight.
Right, right. Can I just add on to that, Henry? It was when so I'm from Holy Trinity in Thornhill, and it was when a visiting minister said to me, "How many people have you got? Have you got, are in the online chapel?" And I said, "Oh, at that point we were, 25 to 30 a Sunday." And he said, "That's a huge ministry." And I tell you, it was a bolt of lightning to me. And ever since then, I do not think about it as the live streaming. I view this as a ministry, and I explain to the church. I'll go down and I'll say, okay, we have 30 people in this section of the church, and we have 50 people in this section. I want you all to look to your left and see another section, and those are your colleagues. Everybody wave to them, wave to the cameras. Those are your colleagues who are in another section called the online chapel. Doug, don't forget to unmute and talk to us.
Okay, unmuted. I came here to learn what other churches are doing, to see if there's anything that we can be doing that we're not already doing. We started off with a telephone ministry before anything was online, but we were limited then by how many telephone lines we had connected into the building. So in some ways it got a lot easier when we could reach more people. We started off when they were starting to relax the rules in COVID, and you can have 6 people in the church. So that gave us a couple of ministers, a few technicians, somebody to play the organ. And there we were pre-recording it and then going through the editing process of putting it all together. And the nice thing was you could do retakes and cut out the nasty bits. And so you got a nice production. But when we eventually started going online live, it was a lot less work because we didn't have to do all that editing, and you took what came.
Right.
So we've been doing Zoom calls on Tuesday nights for Compline, an evensong type of service. And that's done just with maybe half a dozen to a dozen people, just a service done within the people themselves. We have people assigned to do reading, somebody else to do responses, and it works out quite nicely. And again, it's another community, again, separate from what we see on the Sundays. And then on the Sunday mornings, we're going streaming to YouTube. So the advantage of that is that it allows people to tune into the service anytime during the week. So it's interesting how many people actually come in later through the week to pick up on a service or just tune into the sermon if that's what they're interested in. Some are interested in the music, so they just come for pick and choose those pieces of it.
Sure.
And so that's quite nice, being able to do that. And then over the last month, we've done a survey online to see what people thought about the music in the church. Do they like the way we're doing it this way and another way? Or do you like postludes, don't like postludes? What kind of things can we do to change our music program? So that was all done as an online survey. We provided paper surveys, but out of 100 surveys, only about 3 of them were done on paper. So everything was done online. And then all the statistical mathematics could be done online as well. And so we had a lot of conclusions come out of that. And that's available online now for people to review. And we'll follow up with a few panel discussions to hit the highlights of that.
Terrific. Thanks, Doug.
All right. You're very welcome.
And Doug, just before I go to Heather, are you willing to share your survey?
Yeah, it's...
I hate to see people reinventing the wheel.
Okay, the services are on YouTube. Look for Trinity Aurora, and you'll
And I'll
find
send
it.
you an email, Doug. See if we can
Okay.
get that survey. Thanks. Heather Bennett and then Bob Horn.
Thanks, Rebecca. Maybe to answer some of what Suzanne was asking, one of the things that I think happens with Zoom is that it really simulates a lot of what happens in real church. Not that we, I mean, as Lynn was saying, we think Zoom is real church. But in the same way that in-person church, which is probably the better term, involves greeters, people who do prayers of the people, people who do the do the readings, and so on. Those same roles still exist in Zoom, and so we have Christina and Catherine are the rota schedulers. We have a rota of moderators, readers, prayers of the people, intercessors. And it occurred to me as Suzanne was talking, because we do, I forget what we call it, where the Eucharist is not, there isn't a Eucharistic prayer per se. We have, Morgan does wonderful videos showing the paten and the chalice with music behind that is appropriate for the season. Because we do the communion, I'll just say, as I say, without the prayers of intercession, I think we could have honorary assistants, or we could have licensed lay readers, or we could have laity who could function as the worship leader, if you like. Probably not all the time, but from time to time. So as I say, there's I think that's one of the things that really is notable is this idea that in a sense you're simulating in-person church, but in a different format, and it's equally robust. So that greeting function at the beginning of the service, the coffee time, I'll call it leadership, to engage people in the post-service conversation. Those are all, as I say, things we do for in-person, and they definitely transfer over.
Great, Heather. Thank you so much. I saw somebody saying if we don't have enough time, I think that was you, Morgan. Just before I go to Bob, Morgan, what what did you want to make sure that you said?
Oh, well, I
I'm
mean, I
trying.
did want to make sure I answered Michael in the chat, which I did in text,
Okay.
but I don't know if others see that or if it helps to say
Okay.
it. But it was
Okay.
really just an elaboration on things. So maybe we should move on to Bob first before
We
I take
will.
up any of his time.
We will. And by the way, we'll also send out the chat separately. It comes as a text file, and I can do that. Bob.
Bob from Ascension Don Mills. Like Doug, we use extensively YouTube. We've been doing it for almost 2 years. We have 10 camera angles off one camera, 8 microphones, and all sorts of other things. And it's all done with one person, with cutting in picture and all that. But what we have found is that on a Sunday, we have from 2 to sometimes over 10 people watching, depending on the weather. But if you check back during the week, because it's recorded, we can have 30 or 40 views after the service. I'm assuming that's people looking to our church to see if they are interested, or people that couldn't make it that want to have the service. So we think it's very successful. We also do Compline on Thursday evenings, a Zoom. It's quite successful, well attended to. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, where's my partner in crime, Dave? So we have 5 minutes left, during which time I just want to make sure, Dave, did you have any questions?
Yes, it's wonderful to see the Zoom audience provide us such a rich presentation tonight. One question I have, Morgan, is around how many people can you host on Zoom and have that balance of the comfort and intimacy together? How many would you say would be the optimum that you could, for lack of a better word, manage or keep within the fold?
I
What's
don't
the
know that we've
magic
ever
number?
I don't know that we've ever hit an upper limit, and I'm rarely ever a part of those conversations after a service, so I'm not the right person to answer that question. I think anyone from the Zoom community would be.
Yeah.
But I will say that there's a technical limitation. Zoom only allows you to have a certain number unless you pay for a pro account anyway. So there is
Yes.
that limitation. But I will also say that a number of people only stay for the service and then leave right before that. So the number that stay, as far as I know, is probably less than 20 on average for those. But I'll let someone else answer that.
Right. When we were doing it, I just took my experience from being an online educator in Zoom. And my experience was that you need somebody who's going to sort of manage the discussion, and you want really no more than 8 to 10 people. So when we had a lot of people on, I would just put them into breakout rooms and have somebody who was, sort of the activator and manager
Yes.
of the
Yeah.
discussion.
I will say that during COVID, we did have breakout rooms, and every response I've heard about those was negative. I think
Really?
that
Oh,
I think that everyone prefers the sort of like big group thing, and I think it's a good format too, because just like in this call here, sort of one person is the person talking. We're not all talking over each other, and everyone gets to learn together. Hopefully, we are all respectful of each other's time and don't hog the mic. And with that, I will once again turn it over to Deb.
it's okay. I'm going to ask Deb, and then I think we'll be ready to do some closing.
I just want to add that there's the pre-service, which I'm never at because I can never make it by 9 o'clock. I'm like rushing in the door. But I have to say, when I'm rushing in the door, it's like cheers. Everybody knows your name and everybody's saying hi. It's very welcoming and lovely. But there's a group of people that Christina reminds me every now and then that meet before for 10 or 15 minutes. And that group has a discussion before the service that has a certain flavor. And then there's a group of us that always linger after. And we linger for an hour and 10 minutes, and have pretty deep conversations about, as Marie said in the video, about things that really matter to us, what's happening in our lives, but also the sermon, talking to the priest before they leave for the next service gives us a basis for that conversation and answers to our questions. And I don't think we've ever come close to a maximum number of people that could have participated. And we've had 10, 11, 12 after on occasion. Regularly, it's about 8, I would say. But so that's my add to this conversation about numbers and what's happening.
Thanks, Deb. So I do want to say an official thank you so much, Morgan, for not only engaging us in this conversation, but putting together a very thoughtful presentation. And I am so grateful that it is recorded, because I want to go back and listen and read everything that you provided to us. And I do hope you'll come back again. I know you don't like to be the center of attention, but we'll make sure you're in a small box. And I also want to thank Elizabeth for hosting this and starting us off. And of course, Dave and Tim were all part of a group of the Online Mission and Ministry, which I put in the chat for you at the very beginning. This is where the YouTube, yes, you're all on YouTube. No, you're not. Where the recording will be placed along with our other recordings. And we are going to continue this topic because we didn't really even get into some of the really serious device issues that we have, not divide, but device issues that we have as the technology becomes more and more advanced. Yeah, Morgan did talk about that. And what do we in the parishes, how do we start to be able to support our parishioners in the same way that we would give them decent pews? We need to give them decent ways of being a part of our online ministry and faith. So,
and also, I mentioned in the chat already, if anyone wants to reach out, if anyone has questions that they couldn't ask here, I'm happy to spend some time addressing those directly. So I put my email in chat. It's just muyew at theredeemer.ca. At least I hope that's my email. Or maybe ask Elizabeth or something. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I'm really happy. Thank you for inviting me and for also being extremely patient with me, by the way, because I was supposed to do a talk like this way back in November, and then things came up, and you were all extremely flexible with giving me an opportunity to postpone this. And also, I want to acknowledge members of the community who I mentioned that I'd be here on Sunday and that I would like them to participate, and they came. So it's not just because of me. I think it's because of the topic. And anyway, you're all really great, and thank you for your time, including those who I don't know. And nice to see some of you. I haven't seen some of you for a while, like Jennifer. So anyway, thank you.
Bravo. Well done, Morgan. Thank you so much.
Thank you for making this meaningful. And we will continue our discussion about ensuring that our worship and our call to Christ is meaningful for everyone.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you so
Careful
much.
going home now.
Yes.
Careful turning off your system.
And stay warm tonight.